Hey, ladies and gentlemen, Scott Perry Johnson, author of The Abandoned Poet, coming right at you. Now, today we're actually going to do a book reading for a change, which is actually pretty ironic coming from me. Now, if you're very unlucky, you're going to sit down, shut up, and learn something. For a change. I really am evil, aren't I? Making you learn? Making you listen? Hearing me read? Well, I didn't see who he was. Have you seen him? Well, this piece is called Misadventures in Perth. It's a story I wrote. I was in a relationship when I was only 16 years old, and it all ended very badly. So, I'm going to be doing 2 written pieces today. Neither of them are poems, they're both stories, both based on my life. And I hope you enjoy it, ladies and gentlemen. Misadventures in Perth. Actually, that's where I was born. East Fremantle. Grew up in Darwin, now live in New South Wales. Here we go. So, it begins. So it happens. Decisions made. Packed in a fluorescent bright airport. In a calm setting. Still trapped in a relationship with a young man I didn't much care for. A few years older than me. However, not any the wiser. A desperate yearning for a new love, a fresh start, and a determination to get as far away from the past as possible. Set a course of events in motion. Everything was about to change. Forever. Mother and a few other family members saw Keith and I off at the gate. Fake names. Walking through to the plane, I didn't expect to cry. Expected comfort from Keith, which I was somewhat relieved I didn't get, and certainly didn't expect to be consoled by a flight attendant. She did help a little bit, though. Tears shed for a mother, laced with very confused, strongly mixed feelings, was the cause. The view from the plane, as we were taken off, was dazzling. As glad as I was to be getting as far away from Darwin as possible, there was a nagging voice in the back of my head. Alex! That's the name I gave myself in this one. His is Keith. Keith inquired. I can't wait until we get to Perth. You're going to like it. I hope so. Where are we going to be living? The guy I was talking to online. He has some spare room, and we're going to Bunbury. What a time to find out. Not only did Keith not know the man we were supposedly going to be residing with, but not even having the decency to run it by me was nothing short of appalling. The combination of the pitch dark night, the rocking of the plane, and the music from the Walkman, and my head against the window was an unforgettable feeling. Slightly uncomfortable, and at the same time soothing. Everyone's always so quiet and awkward in the air, which makes sense in a way. The awareness of being trapped in a machine with a group of people for a long period of time is enough to make anyone with half a brain tread carefully. Hey! Wake up! Keith shrieked excitedly. We're there! Get up! Let's go! Hold on! Okay, I replied, as I was awoken with weariness, passing a funny, harmless drunk man. The feeling of the new cold air, the comfort of my hoodie, and the bright lights anew intrigued me. It was as if we were on a different planet as we stepped off the plane. Slow down! I shouted from a distance. It was hard to keep up with Keith, speed walking. We collected our suitcases and proceeded through the doors to the taxi rank. I'm rolling a cigarette. Do you want one? He announced, with a sigh of relief, as he was searching for cigarette butts on the ground to add to his pouch. I looked down as he did. Hunched over, he offered yet again. Having one or not? He asked in a pushy manner, holding it out in front of him. No thanks. Can't you just buy some instead of picking them up off the ground? I have no money. That's why I can't smoke them too quickly. Well, just roll them thin. The roller machine makes them come out a bit tight and hard to smoke. Roll them by hand. I can't, Keith replied. An unpleasant conversation aside, we had arrived. The noise from the vehicles and pedestrians around the vicinity grew fainter and dim as I looked out into the dead of night. As my mind drifted, so did my dreams of a little further apart. Alex! Keith shouted, with a rush forth momentum. Well, yes! The taxi's here! Get in! Snapped out of a beautiful dream I didn't wish to leave in a hurry. We were on our way to the big city. The tall buildings, wave after wave of people, and the atmosphere ran abundant with activity, just as I'd always pictured a big city. We had a reservation at a hotel as a Christmas gift from my mother. I'll never forget how I felt that arrival outside the hotel lobby in the cold, refreshed, reborn, and filled with butterflies. We were broken, but we were there. And we had one night of comfort. Rushed out due to oversleeping, disorientated with the mid-morning sun rays glaring in my eyes. We then made it our way to a train station. I've never been on a train before. How long will it take to get us there? I asked hesitantly as we stood inside the entrance a few meters away to the right at the back wall. A few hours. It takes a while to get there, Keith replied. After waiting impotently to find out the future, tickets checked on board, and noticing that there was a feeling of relief and disbelief, thoughts of soon-to-be arrangements numbed my subconscious, wondering and guessing in suspense. Look! Keith pointed out the window to the left, with eyes bulging with glee. What? I asked. The hills, look, look. Yes, I see them. Stunning. It was as if the hillsides were welcoming us to the state, putting on a show just for us, and somehow making sure each hill was better than the last, while the sun shined on the green so perfectly and gently that for just one moment every problem there had ever been was forgotten. After a long walk, we were greeted by the man we were going to be staying with. We were staying staring. We were staring the reason for our journey in the face, at last. He looked as he looked us up and down, paying particular attention to the direction I was standing in. Sudden glances were exchanged before he introduced himself. He was skinny, of average weight, and near an old age. Unkempt, poorly maintained, greying hair, and slight facial stubble the same. "Hello, I'm Gary. How you going?" he said, in a lustrous, yet well-mannered enthusiasm. We introduced ourselves on a first-name basis. Keith and Gary exchanged pleasantries, as I cautiously stood a slighter distance away, offering at this point only a hello and programmed niceties dictated by conformity. He drove us to his tiny one-bedroom unit, a staircase up. We were seated in his little face-to-face lounge room area. "Well, now you're here, let's get to know each other," Gary suggested hospitably, with a creepy smile indicating he wanted something more. "You two must be tired after such a long trip. Is there anything I can get you?" "No, thanks, Gary. Nah. I got weed," our host boasted generously. There, on the table, was a bong ready, and waiting, as if he used it on a daily basis. Feeling overwhelmed, I eventually accepted his insistent invitation to partake in the questionable illicit gateway drug from a stranger I just met. As Keith and Gary got to know each other better, Gary, sitting opposite to us, the room started spinning. The nausea was far too intense to handle. Senses overtaken by this deleterious disease inflicted upon society sent my inhibitions soaring to new heights, doing everything but relax. Neurological paranoia increased to dramatic levels, as if there were a being of chaos slicing apart all three dimensions simultaneously. Vision blurred. The room moved from side to side. A huge quantity in a more than moderate sized baggie was waved to and fro. Though sadistic images of the past haunted my every stoned millisecond, nonetheless, remaining calm. So calm that in an attempt to hold my faculties intact, I could almost feel the blood surging through my veins. "Hey, how old's Alex there?" Gary wondered, in less than pure curiosity. "He's 16. 16? I answered, only a moment after Keith eagerly spoke on my behalf. "What about you, Keith? How old are you?" 21? "I see," Gary said, expressing interest, with a very happy smirk of approval pinned on his face. "You know, I know this man. That is, if you're interested in where I'm going with this." "What kind of man?" Keith asked, being that the topic was addressed to him, as I continued to spin out on the toxic mixture administered to me only a half-hour earlier. Well, my mates Nobly downstairs would be very keen to meet your little friend. Gary explained in a very suggestive way. He would pay $50, but I'd get half. If it's okay with him, Keith said. Still trying to hold myself together. Surprised, but not shocked at the light attitude concerning a gross overstep of common decency with the exposure of depravity, and feeling like a disposable object once again. I was indignant to the aggravatingly offensive conduct of the conversation. Alex? Yes, Gary? You okay there, little mate? I don't know. Did you hear what we were discussing? Kinda. In a smarmy way, there was not a full sense of concern for my well-being. In the same way, fenced-in farm animals receive extraordinary care, so that others may benefit from their resources and means. The treatment of my person felt strikingly similar for a short period of time. Kinda, Gary replied with anticipation to my response in an attempt to hide his concealed pushiness. Eventually, I managed to decipher the riddle of this distorted back and forth banter. It was eerie. The same way some would discuss the weather, sports, games, or casually converse of familiarities, was in the same manner of the two, the impression of whom was speaking. Pressured with outright confrontation, presented in the friendliest way possible, I declined the offer. No, thank you. Why not, Alex? You could make a few bucks and have some fun at the same time, Gary said. I just don't want to. Well, it's up to you. Gary was disappointed. Keith simply went along with anyone at all. When in between conflicting ideas, views, opinions, questions, and answers, he'd withdraw. This small unit was now our home. Small being an understatement. The kitchen resembled that of a caravan from the 1980s, and the shower was dirty, claustrophobic, also similar to squeezing into a single-sized cupboard. There was a modest couch in the lounge room, and one bedroom, with a double bed in it and a few pieces of furniture. So, it seemed we were settled into a strange place, in a new state, with a perfect stranger neither of us knew at all. Unsure of day-to-day living, and what to do with our spare time. Too late to look back, nevertheless, just enough time to think about what tomorrow will bring. You look tired, Alex, said Keith. No, I'm fine. Just a little bit nerve-rattled about what we were talking about earlier. There was no pressure. It feels like there was. That's all in your head. Don't say that! Don't tell me it's all in my head. We were both there. Okay, just saying. Don't get upset. I'm not. I'm annoyed. You drag us all the way across the country for this? You said you wanted to go. Yeah, that's when I thought you'd made sensible plans. Not just some harebrained idea of shaking up a stranger. Within the first few days, I arrived back with a carton of canned whiskey. Gary was smoking his bong. I was drinking my whiskey, and Keith, uninterested in either vice, was simply adapted to the new surroundings. Got a lot to drink there, mate, Gary said, observing the quantity of the carton. Can I offer you? Sip after sip, gulp after gulp. It didn't matter anymore. This cozy little setup, was not what I envisioned. It's not what I wanted. Still, anything was better than a house of yelling and arguing friends and family, coming and going as they please, and non/rare breaks of violence, insanity, chaos, hopelessness, depression, anxiety, anger, hatred, and despair. There was always an unsettling sense in the air, as if something were emerging from the shadows, and sudden bursts of dysfunction were unpredictable and unavoidable. Like it or not, it was a day-to-day disaster that just had to burn itself out like an oil fire. In order to adapt myself, I became very intoxicated. It was a quiet and, in my mind, dignified inebriation. Hours went by. I had sobered, more or less. It started to get dark outside. The night was here, and it was again time to maneuver strategic arrangements of where to sleep. This night, Keith, since Alex has slept on the couch every night so far, why don't you take the couch and Alex can sleep in my bed with me? Tonight, Alex is okay with the couch, Keith said, eager to continue sleeping in the bedroom. I'm fine on the couch. Nonsense, little mate. Keith can take the lounge tonight. You'll be alright in my room. With me. Gary winked at me. We stayed up a little while longer, but the sleeping arrangements had now been sorted, despite how much happier I'd be to sleep in the lounge room. Good night, Keith. We're going off to bed now. Yeah, all right. Good night. Gary leaned in next to Keith, lying on the couch, and whispered aloud, "If you hear any noises, just ignore them." What noises? Oh, just any noise that sounds funny. Just ignore it. Alex has been drinking, you know. Yeah? Okay. Wait. Yes? Never mind. Have fun. Good night, Keith. Night. I have no idea why Keith said have fun. But I chose to believe it was a euphemism expressed in a figure of speech. My already impaired judgment shook ground, and the only pleasure desired that night was simply a good night's sleep. I lied down in the bed on the right side, where the bed was against the wall. As I started to drift off, the sheets started to move. Gary wrapped his hands around my body. He started to breathe in a supernatural way. No, I tried to resist his manner. My body froze. I was afraid of the repercussions of my next reaction. Very, very tired, trying to move back into a sleeping position. My body and my mind and body went numb as he started to undress me. Without my consent, permission, or willingness, I was now naked in his bed. Keith was asleep in the lounge room. But for that night, my body was Gary's. Not because I gave it to him, but because I knew I'd be taken by force if I didn't just lie there and surrender. Each time I pulled away, he would apply a forceful pressure. Each time I tried to say anything at all, he would cover my mouth tightly and continue. As the morning rays fell upon sweat-soaked bed sheets, Gary's attitude reverted back to the normalities of yesterday's past. To him, it was as if last night never happened at all. To him, a brand new dawn as I made my way to the shower. I stood under the running water, making no movement at all. I was just as numb, but angry. Rather lacking the feeling, I looked up, sanitized myself, and walked out into the lounge as both Keith and Gary were casually conversing. Feeling quite ill, I just stood at the door and remained quiet and still. Gary tugged at my towel. It fell off in front of Keith. Not fazed by this, I was touched several times in the living room. Keeping a straight face, and ignoring further advances, I located my clothes. As I dressed, he felt me up in the process. Gary entered into yet another conversation with Keith, mostly speaking to him. Gary revealed that he knew a 10-year-old boy whom came around now and then to do him favours. That was the last straw. I had to get out of this place. I refused to stay any longer. I had to leave. The atmosphere felt like that of a lawless society, as if there was secrets and underground ways of living outside jurisdiction. No consequences, no remorse, and many hidden agendas. Festering with both frowned upon and illegal activity, I had truly stumbled across a den of perversion and illicitness. I decided to journey out alone for a walk to clear my head and consider an alternative. Next move. Wandering around aimlessly, always remembering the way back. That direction, the portal, to confront pure disgust, so I never strayed far. But my first time, completely alone in a new state, I saw no one. The area was overcast and empty. Finally, time to return. Very slowly, I made my way back to the unit. What could I say? Where could I go? Would Gary become violent if he were informed of me leaving? With or without, preferably without Keith. One factor remained. Sealed in concrete, my mind was made up. To both involved, a queasy revulsion overtook my system. These were the thoughts felt, understandably. There's reason and cause to depart, as I approach with a dizzy and tired facade, walking up the steps. I was inclined to speak with the neighbours, only a few feet away to the left next door. A rather large woman answered the door. Yes, what do you want? She lived with another woman in her unit. I explained what had happened. It was somewhat vague, as Gary may walk outside at any moment. Trying to fit everything into a nutshell, the reaction shown wasn't that of which I was seeking. What's this? I don't know who you think you are, but Gary wouldn't do a thing like that. Get lost! I was surprised beyond belief. Living only next door, those women obviously knew Gary, but did not have the faintest clue on his double life identity. Gary did walk outside, as we were talking. That woman expressed disbelief towards him of what I had said. She had full confidence in him as a neighbour and friend. I knew him briefly as a man, a sick man. I didn't know he had overheard the situation. Alex, do you think I'd do something like that? Gary said. He spoke in a very understanding voice, as though he were using a persona for a confused kid. This had sickened me even further. I knew he attempted to cover his tracks of the side no one else may have known besides like-minded accomplices. Come inside, and we'll sort this out. There's nothing to sort out. I've had enough, and I want to leave. Just get in here, little buddy. Little mate, come on. I'm not angry at you. You're just tired. Poor boy. You don't know what you're saying. Patronize and condescension aside, I was very tired. Emotional and weary. I had no choice but to resume one last night. Unbeknown to Gary, I planned to leave the very next day. With or without Keith. Gary told me he wouldn't be home all day the next day and insisted on speaking with me upon arriving back. The next morning, Gary was away for the day. Greeted by Keith, I revealed the episodes that had taken place when he was watching, unfazed by everything. Clearly elaborated to him. I started to question his morality and mindset once again. Keith, I'm going! I'm leaving, and I'm never coming back! Why? Why? What kind of question is that? Oh, I don't want you to go. We just got here. Wait longer, and you might like it here. I'm not waiting. I'm going. I'll go by myself if I have to. Keith and I argued the point, but I knew what I was doing. I was determined to turn back now, or risk my own safety. Life and ethical point of view. I knew that if I didn't turn back now, there would never be any chance of living with myself. Keith came with me. I was hesitant to allow him to return to me, to my dysfunctional family, as violent as they may be, and the only place in the world I had no choice but to call home. I didn't know how to get back on my own, so in my mind, he was a necessary evil. Trepidation set in as I gathered my belongings as quickly as possible. I was no stranger to physical and sexual advantage being taken to. So I soldiered on, well rested, with a clear head held high, paucity to where we were heading was uncertain at this point. Keith gathered his belongings shortly after, with an unwillingness to vacate. Gary had no idea that it would be long gone upon arriving back to his unit. After yet more walking, we found ourselves on a public train, something which was quite new to me still. I was surprised how quick a trip was, as I was used to public buses. Keith had taken us to his friend's house. She was the reason we'd met. She was the inadvertent cause of this fiasco. As she opened the door, she looked quite surprised to see us. I only met her online before this. The first time we met was in this situation. we were invited in. As we greeted each other, she seemed uneasy with us arriving on her doorstep. She had never met me in person. Did I just say that? However, she and Keith knew each other. We were standing in the kitchen, talking. It was merely the type of surprised chit-chat which was heavily felt in the atmosphere. She offered us the use of her father's caravan out in the backyard, providing her father didn't know we were there. We walked outside and she showed us the caravan next to the side fence on the left side of the yard, left side when facing the back door. She was home alone. After about half an hour, more of awkward chatting, she then changed her mind and had no choice but to kindly send us on our way. It was late afternoon, and I had no choice but to contact family for assistance hesitantly. Keith was given directions by my mother on the phone to the bank. It's a bit late. It's probably closed, Alex, Keith said. Hey, no. It has to be open. We need to leave tonight. We have nowhere else to go. We arrived at the entrance. We walked past a beautiful rounded area around the corner on the way. It was a rounded direction. Beautiful buildings surrounded the area. We knocked on the bank door, and a lady cautiously spoke to us with the door opened a crack. Yes? Can I help you? I started to panic because the bank was closed up from what I saw. It was an orange skied late afternoon. As I panicked, I put my arms through the door in desperation, and the lady at the bank insisted I remove my arms from the door opening. Shortly after, she allowed us into the bank. When we divulged that there was money being held for us, we explained that we needed to arrive back in Darwin that night. I gave her mother's phone number to verify that we were the correct people to collect. I recall the lady at the bank having a very strong and professional personality. On the phone to my mother, the bank teller checked out our claim in order to identify myself, then paused on the phone and asked me to walk from the counter and back. I grew up walking funny. I had to learn how to walk perfectly. My walk was in no uncertain terms the way in which I was recognized. My walk of undignified humiliation of the means used to acknowledge a difference of suggestion over the phone was the sole reason of acquiring the money rightfully paid by the government to fly us back in order for me to testify against another teenager, for he had his own friends kicking me in the face whilst unconscious and breaking my nose. Coincidentally, upon deciding to leave Western Australia, my walk was not yet perfected after spending years learning how to transport myself properly and without validation My walk has now been perfected. That night, we boarded a plane back to Darwin. I knew there was still a lot to face yet. I was tired and burnt out, trying to find the strength to carry on and move forward, though I feared returning to the place which had haunted my every waking moment. I had a realization, which I was with a young adult I had to keep an eye on, especially for the sake of my family. No one knew these hidden secrets concealed. No one knew what had happened behind the scenes. It was imperative that I say nothing and keep quiet for the time. It was inevitable, as I knew the seemingly impossible task of ridding him from my life was inescapable. Keith had to remain with me for the time being. I had to escape that. I knew the depths of his perversions now. He'd no idea that I looked at him with disgust. We may have been on our way home, but to me, I was on my way back to face a tiring challenge. A tiring challenge no mortal should ever face. Another stepping stone with a hidden agenda. That reading was extremely difficult for me. Well, next we have The Jackal's Friend. When I was only of age 22, my unofficial foster father rescued me from a life of forced prostitution. And living with him at first, I was angry, and I didn't feel like I had the right to live. There were so many thoughts and emotions, so many guilty feelings run through me, and none I was responsible for. He played the role of the friend, I played the role of the jackal. This one's called The Jackal's Friend. Now, I arose from a dream within a nightmare, within yet another dream, pleasant in two realms, however, torturous in another, almost as to say, even with double happiness, we must endure torment and misery. Why endure the thoughts and feelings which only torment? How else could we possibly know happiness? I say, yes, I say, it's true, there's a fragment of happiness emerging, but lonely, far too lonely, that the soul is pierced by the very fire devised to warm my blood and boil my whiskey in a cold winter storm. I confess, all happiness comes at a price. Ponder waiting, forever still, forever waiting. I declare, what you'll see as insufferable. Eyes will blister, the red ooze, that of which incomprehensible villains find fascination. I did the deed. I wore the cloak. I swallowed the ashes. I found the missing silver in the direction which she gazed. I looked into the very abyss of madness. I've taken your point and improved it. I lost your philosophy. I found my own and uncovered the secrecy of your grey, blackening heart. I digress. I digress as there's a point in this raven, and a plot in the mist, and a mist in the oozing eyes. As you must know, time is non-existent. It's not, I tell you! Actions know time not. But I know. I've seen. I've observed obedience in time. What withered? That which stood, and that what shadow cast in a darkened midnight hour. Psychotic, you say. I'm psychotic? You hardly scratched the surface. I'll tell you about a man, a kindly man. He would never let go, no matter what events transpire. On a walk in the rain, covered and sheltered by a charcoaled umbrella, a jolt is heard, a flash is questioned, and a detour takes place. A tree in flames, a fallen branch, and a howl of despair. Who would the man find but a jackal writhing in pain? A vicious, angry, rabid jackal, with teeth baring and weary. The tree branch was carefully and hesitantly removed. The jackal was covered with a coat and sheltered with the umbrella, taken by the kindly man to a little cottage at the bottom of a hill. As I take pleasure in all the sorrow of all sorrowed haunts, allow me to remind, yes, remind you, there was a mention of insanity, psychotic, I think he said. Well, I'll elaborate and compare your delusions to mine, as I listen for further voices to occur. Reoccur. As the days pass by, the blinding sun shines. The man nursed the jackal back to health, until the bats flew left from their caves, and the underworld emerged to skulk in the ambiguity of the shadows in the pitch-black dark night. From what is found, seen, appearing in the brain's mind's eyes, fondness grew stronger with every passing moment. The man would sit beside the jackal, petting him, just petting, comforting, and changing the dressings to the moist wounds as they healed. Did I forget to mention the man was kindly and lonely? I believe I did. If you remember his anguish, which did develop into a euphoria and a new found friend. Eventually, the jackal became angrier still! There was no reason. There was no cause. He had everything he could want and need. Everything he could desire. I'm quite sure. Yes. Unexplainably. He became deranged. He didn't know why. The man didn't either. But yes, he was now very vicious again, indeed. Deranged. As electricity surged through my head, I'm reminded of the horror next to her eyes. The jackal, as the man slept, would at times sleep beside the man. Some nights the man would awake, seen by the light of a candle, to find the jackal in his bedchambers, just staring, focused, with teeth baring, similar to that of a hound from hell. Shuddering in distress, the man attempts to ignore this unusual sardonic behavior, but to no avail. The man would smile and reluctantly try to slumber once again. This, of course, is not the horror I mentioned. Delirious as the man's efforts to soothe and wrap in unconditional bliss. I'll admit, I smirked at the futility as the savage beast jumped from all presence of the man, prepared to sever all ties. I laughed, but alas, this which I found humorous was never lasting, for a smirk at a view dwindles rapidly. Reality, now in a state of blank shock, I was content with this agony. What's that? I'm sickening, you say? Well, you won't think that of me much longer when I explain the lengths this man went to. Such lengths that all others seem dowdy in comparison. Also, was I not called psychotic? Each time the jackal became aggressive, the man would pet him on the head in such a way it became a regular habit. So much so, it was expected, such as a dependent attitude takes place. Control every fibre of a being. The jackal reverted to animal instinct often. As he reverted, anger emerged in the scavenger, to an extent that the wildness of his very audacity would rise to the surface with anticipated gore. Now, the jackal stared round around in frustration. His head was very... His palpitations were rattling. He would bolt or shake. He bolted. In which dimension of treacherous disbelief claimed nerves so shattered? It began. It was happening. The jackal charged to the man's feet, sending him tripping onto a small mahogany table backwards. The kindly man was down. Very, very down. As he fell backwards, his spine shattered. The table had left him paralyzed from the waist down. As his eyes shut, slipping into unconsciousness, he was sent back into a dream, within a nightmare, within yet another dream. The man awoke to find the intrusive jackal gnawing off his right arm. The man was paralyzed from the waist down. His right arm was cut clean off. If now you think me psychotic and sickening, I have yet more to tell you. The jackal cared for the man. There was no malice. It was not related to his anger. Simply who the jackal was. As I gaily chuckled at that which you may overreact to. The man cared deeply for the jackal. The jackal craved his arm. The man had no use for it any more. All the man wanted to do was to make the jackal happy. Night after night, the man would cut off a piece of his arm, cook it over the fire, and present it to the jackal, until the arm was no more. Paralyzed from the waist down, he sits there beside the jackal, petting him with his one remaining arm, as he was still the jackal's friend. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. That was a very traumatic reading for me. I want to go relax now because we all have to. Eventually, when we're allowed to. This was very traumatizing for me, and I'm used to re-traumatizing myself. Uh, I just want to go hug my teddy bear and cats and have something to eat and watch TV. Maybe listen to some music. Maybe yell at some people online, who knows. But thank you so much for being not only fans, but friends too. I don't like phony people. You know what? I always said that fans aren't friends, but there are some exceptions. Some fans are friends, but they won't put me out of the gutter when I was a homeless street kid on the game. And now people smile up in my face. Try not to be one of those people. Like me for me. And for my work. Not for if I'm poor or rich or homeless or sheltered. Just like me for me. I'm a very sensitive guy. I really am. I just adopted a second cat. Well, this was a struggle to do this video. I'm very sentimental too. This was a very huge struggle to do this video. And that was only 2 pieces out of almost 100. I had, in my smoking days, when I was writing, I had a cigarette in one hand, a bowl of whiskey in the other, and tears rushing down my face. Doing these 2 written pieces was extremely difficult. I hope you appreciate the effort, and I love and respect all of you. This has been Scott Perry Johnson, author of The Abandoned Poet. Coming, I'm going to do a little stunt for this one. Coming right at you. See you guys, and I hope to see you on social media. And I hope you enjoyed my piece. Is plural. What should I do now? Sounds about right. That's me. Bye, guys.